Mississippi at the Mississippi Trade Mart for 100 years of faith, family, and farm bureau. Joining us now, Congressman Michael Guest. He represents, of course, Mississippi's 3rd Congressional District. Congressman, morning, sir.
Good morning, Gerard. How are you today?
Doing fantastic. This Mississippi Trade Mart, I'm so glad that we took this project on, and kudos to all of those involved. Of course, Ag Commissioner Andy Gibson was integral in this effort. This is a fantastic facility, isn't it?
It really is. It is night and day from what the old Trade Mart to what Andy's been able to build there, and that is going to continue to build momentum there on the fairgrounds, going to continue to help as we seek to revitalize downtown Jackson. So you've got things such as the Trade Mart and the Capitol Police and everything that we're seeing down there. It's just really going to be a boom for our capital city.
It's awesome. It's fun to come down here. You know, kind of dreaded it going to the old facility. It just aged, and we needed a new one, and we have it. And there's plenty of parking, and the roads are recently paved. So, nice venue for an event like that for sure. So, just checking on the results in the House of Representatives. All the reports I'm looking at still show we're at 220 to 213, so we still have 2 seats outstanding, but I believe those are expected to go Republicans, which would put us at 222, 213, 9-seat margin. Is that what you're seeing as well, what you're hearing?
Yeah, the last 2 uncalled seats are trending in Republicans' favor. While they've not been called yet, we do believe that both those seats will ultimately be in Republican control. So we'll have 222 seats, so 218 to have the majority. So that gives us really a 5-seat cushion there. We know that as we began the last 2 weeks, we've been going through amendments to our caucus rule packages. We finished those up this week. We've elected steering committee members from each of the regions throughout the country. The steering committee will begin meeting next week to populate committee chairmen. And then on January 3rd, of course, we will have the vote on the House floor to elect the next Speaker of the United States House of Representatives.
Is it your opinion, Congressman, that Kevin McCarthy is in good shape there? Are there a lot of reports that suggest he may not have the necessary votes? What do you think?
You know, I think he is very close to having the votes that he needs. I think if the election were today, there may be a few members that would still not support McCarthy, but he is working very hard to build that coalition to 218. He's reaching out to the entire conference, whether it be the Freedom Caucus or some of the more moderate groups. He is wanting to include all members of the Republican caucus in what we intend to do when we take control in January. I hope that this is a one-vote speaker's election. It is possible that if no member gets 218, that there would be subsequent votes, and we know that Congress cannot conduct any official business until first we elect a speaker and adopt the rules package. And so the quicker we can do that, the quicker we can get to legislating, the quicker we can get to beginning to conduct these investigations and fulfill the promises that we've made to the American people.
Yeah. So, one of the things that came to mind, Congressman, is I remember, I don't remember which class it was. Maybe it was the last class, but when Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats were working on the rules, do you remember that one of those was the way you had to refer to the spouses of members? You couldn't, and their family members, you couldn't use the words brother and father and sister and wife and husband. Do you remember that? Am I right?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. They had a house rule that everything had to be gender neutral, so you no longer had chairman or chairwoman.
Gosh.
It was chairperson. When you were introducing legislation, you couldn't refer to brothers and sisters. You had to refer to siblings. You couldn't refer to mom and dad. They had to be referred to as parents. Clearly, wokeness run amok. I can promise you that those will no longer be included in the Republican rule package that we will vote on January the 3rd.
Is it true as well that what I've seen, that we're going to start every day in the House of Representatives there with a prayer and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? How novel.
Yes, we will do that, and Speaker, hopefully soon to be Speaker McCarthy has said that we will also start on January 3rd by reading the Constitution, to making sure that all members have had an opportunity to review the document that we pledge an oath to follow, and so I think those are all good things. Now, I will say that we have historically opened up with prayer and the pledge, but it will be in the rules package, and so that will now be required every day. It won't be optional. It'll be something that Congress will have to do every day as we start legislative business on behalf of the American public.
All right. So what do you see unfolding? Let's say you guys are sworn in. You take your oath. You're seated. You've got the rules package in place. You elect a speaker. From a legislative perspective, where do we go from there?
First thing that we'll do is we're going to vote to repeal the 87,000 IRS agents that the Democrats have legislated when they passed the poorly named Inflation Reduction Act. That was one of the ways they were able to get that bill passed, is by offsetting the cost of that bill by beefing up the IRS agents substantially, which are going to really, the argument the Democrats were made is these people are only these new IRS agents are only going to be auditing people that make more than $400,000 or more, and that's just a complete fallacy. They're going to be seeking to audit all hardworking Americans, and that's the last thing we need is an army of IRS agents. This legislation would make the legislation the Democrats passed with the addition of those 87,000 IRS agents, they would be the largest law enforcement agency in the entire country. Bigger than Customs Border Patrol, bigger than the FBI, bigger than ATF. And so when our largest law enforcement agency is not seeking to protect Americans but seeking to audit Americans, I just think that is wrong. And so that will be the first piece of legislation that we take up as a Congress. And then we'll begin addressing things as such as opening up our offshore, some of the offshore drilling, some of the natural lands, our natural parks, natural forests, to oil exploration, to try to make sure that we once again become energy independent, and then try to bring down some of the unnecessary spending that has driven up inflation.
Yeah. The White House, about the oil drilling, the White House continues to point fingers at the industry saying, you guys have all these permits, you're just not out there drilling, but that doesn't really seem to be the case. You could have a lease, you could even have a permit, but you also have to have right-of-way access to get to where you're drilling, and sometimes you drill a dry hole, and so that permit was of no value, and you still have a White House that keeps saying we're going to put the fossil fuels business out of business. It just seems to be that they're hiding behind that.
You're right. There's a fallacy in their argument that just because they have a lease that they should then drill everywhere where they have property leased from the federal government. And we know that the oil companies do a great deal of testing, exploration to make sure that if they are going to drill a well, that they have a likelihood that they're going to find oil or natural gas there. And so as they're doing some of their seismic testing to determine whether or not there's a probability of that. In many cases, a decision is made that we are unlikely to find oil or natural gas if we drill in a certain location. And so what the Biden administration is seeking to argue is that in every lease in which our oil companies or our energy companies have, that they should drill each and every one of those sites, and that's not economically feasible. And you also mentioned the fact that this White House wants to put traditional fossil fuels out of business. And so that makes it even more important for these energy companies to make sure that there is a likelihood of a return on their investment very quickly, because we know that this administration and the progressives within the Democrat Party are seeking every day to do away with fossil fuels that we have relied upon really over the last several hundred years.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. You know what I hope, Congressman, is that you guys can get some legislation, send it over to the Senate, get the Democrats on the record on that legislation, because that's probably the biggest contributor to inflation that's just ransacking the wallets of Americans. We got about 30 seconds left.
Yes, sir, and you're right. Energy cost and out-of-control government spending, which is the other thing that we as the Republican Party hope to be able to rein in next Congress, is to do something about the $31 trillion debt that we're facing. Yeah. We continue to add to that debt every day, and ultimately our children and grandchildren will have to pay that debt at some point in their lifetime.
It's so irresponsible. It's crazy. Congressman, always good to talk to you, sir. Appreciate you calling in today, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you some more. Give my regards to the family.
Yes, sir. Thank you. See you soon, Gerard.
Yeah, man. Congressman Michael Guest has been our guest here on Middays. We'll step aside for a break. We've got another segment in this hour, and then SuperTalk News, Fox News, followed by Sally Doty, the director of the Mississippi Office of Broadband Expansion and Accessibility.